Hello everyone, my name is Kamlesh Patil and welcome back to Android Study Jams. This is the session 4 of the Android Study Jam and first session of prior programming experience track. Just a reminder, this track is for the people who have already prior programming experience, but for those who are new to building Android apps. If you are new to programming and Android, please consider the new to programming track. The content will be introduced at a slower pace and the programming fundamentals will be explained along the way. With that being said, let us start. Okay, let us start by recapping what we did last time. Can you remember what we learned in session 1, 2, and 3? What we learned was how to write and run a simple program in Kotlin and on Kotlin Playground, how to set up Android Studio on their computer, how to start a project from a template in Android Studio, how to run an Android app on an emulator, and many more things like that. So we will just give it a quick recap. What are Android Study Jams? Android Study Jams are community organized study groups for people to learn how to build Android apps using an online training course. So right now what we are doing is nothing but just an Android Study Jam. We are just a member of communities gathering together. One of us, I am also one of the member of community, and I'm glad that I get to conduct these sessions. Then then there are two tracks. The first one is new to programming, and another one is having a prior programming experience track. So, for those who do not know what is programming, what is coding, anything about that, they can start the new to programming track. And for those who have little bit of prior programming experience and who have attended the previous session of Kotlin cones, this is the right place. So we will get started with the second track. What is in it for you? Why should you choose to participate in this study jam? Every one of you might have had different answers for this question, right? Most of the common answers might be to learn how to develop apps, to acquire a new skill, to earn certificate, to earn badges, to get featured, right? So these are nothing but the reasons that you might wanted to join this. To earn a certificate just like this one, to get featured on the Google Developers India's various social media handles such as LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and many more. And they also have a weekly newsletter in which you might get featured, earn badges, gather these badges and showcase them on your developer profile, learn activities, what is an activity, how the app works actually. Then solution challenge every year in the June, July, uh, every year in around end of the summer, Google announces a challenge that is solution challenge. It is just like hackathon, and the biggest prizes are you get a fully paid trip to Silicon Valley in US. Then in the previous session, we also got went under through Android development is a Kotlin first language. How does it relate to the Android development? In 2017, Google announced that Kotlin would be another officially supported language on Android. Then in 2019, Google officially announced that Android development would be increased in Kotlin first, so that the new tools libraries which will be made available in Kotlin. To further their commitment, Google and NetJetBrains formed the Kotlin Foundation to protect, promote, and advance the Kotlin language. So in last session, Shreyas also told us that 70% of the top 100,000 apps have been used in Kotlin, and most of them are migrating to Kotlin as well. Then in previous session of Kotlin cones, we also learned the functions, ranges, collections, default names, arguments, null safety, lambda, filter, map, extension function, classes, strings. So in previous session, Shreyas Patil conducted this introduction to Kotlin cones and what are the features of Kotlin cones and everything. So whatever we just learned in the previous session, we will be using that to understand this session. Now that we are done recapping and have been introduced, I'm looking forward to have an amazing and interactive session with you all. Hoping you all would enjoy the show. With that being said, let us dive in. Okay, so obviously there are some prerequisites. These prerequisites will be helpful for this session. Prior programming experiences and as well as experience with an IDE and GitHub are all recommended. Are you aware what is IDE? IDE is nothing but integrated development environment, which means we will be using a language that is Kotlin, and to develop applications in that language we need an environment. So that environment is integrated in Android Studio. Then programming experience in any OOP language. OOP is object oriented programming languages, and the examples of OOPs are C++, Java, Python, Kotlin. If you have an experience in any of this language, you can proceed further with this session, or else you can just go back to the new to programming session. Then navigating and familiar with the GitHub. GitHub is an open source platform where people can contribute to your source to your projects. So that is also helpful if you already are aware what is GitHub and how to use it. Then after this, you will be working independently on the online course. So you will need a computer, a cell phone, and a Wi-Fi connection. Not necessarily Wi-Fi, internet also works. And optional is Android device and USB cable. USB cable will be needed to connect your phone to the computer. If you don't have Android device or the USB cable, don't worry. You can still use the computer to emulate the Android device. But I would highly recommend you use your physical device, because the emulator consumes a huge amount of RAM, which leads to slower processing. Okay. Just few minutes ago, we had the recap. In the last session, we have accomplished a lot, we started to learn about these important topics in Kotlin. But today, we will be applying this knowledge to building our first Android app. It's okay if you feel like you haven't mastered Kotlin yet, but this is just a programming, and it will become more comfortable with the Kotlin language with a lot more practice. So these are just the basic features that we came across in the previous session. Okay. On that note, let us talk about why are you here? Why are you interested in building Android apps? Is it because you have the app idea, want to explore a new career path, or just want to try out something new? Then, if any of you want to come up and tell me anything that you would want to talk about this topic, you can. Is there someone want to talk? Guess so. Okay, so if there is no other option, I would proceed further. So there might be different ideas, different creativities, different reasons that you might be here. And one of them is like you want to earn the certificate, you want to learn the new skill. Correct. With that being said, let us proceed further. Okay. So today we will be building these three Android apps in Kotlin. Each one will help you learn new concepts that build on each another. The first will be dice roller app. It allows you to roll a dice when a button is clicked and get a random value each time. After that, we will be building an About Me app, allowing you to showcase interesting facts about yourself, or you can customize this app for a friend, family member, or a pet, anyone you like. Then, lastly, we will be building a Color My Views app, an interactive app with a more advanced layout. These Android apps will introduce to building UI layouts in an Android, a key to building block of Android app development. Okay, let's start by jumping right into the concepts. Android Studio. Android Studio is the official tool that professional Android developers use to build Android apps. There is a lot of functionality available in the Android Studio to help you build your first app. For example, there are templates to help you create your app, which can generate something like this, what you just see on the screenshot. You can browse the project files on your left. You can use the layout editor to drag and drop UI components and create a layout for your app. Which once you add a UI component, you can modify its attributes, by the attributes window in the right on the right side. As you can see in the screenshot, there is on the left side there is a file explorer, means you can open, close, or read write any another files or create new ones. Then in the mid there is UI component, you can just drag and drop onto the blueprint. As you can see, there are two screens on your view, on the visible in the middle. The left one is white and the right one is blue. Why? Because the first one is how your app would actually look like in a cell phone, and on the second hand, on the right hand, there is blueprint. Blueprint is nothing but just a map of how the layout the hub of how the components will be layout. Okay. Then Android emulator. After you install Android Studio on your computer, you will create a Hello World app. You will learn to run the app in the emulator, which emulates an Android device on your computer. The emulator allows you to test your app on a variety of devices and versions of Android platform. If you have physical device, you will get the instructions to run it on your physical device as well. For you to execute any app on your physical device, all you need to do is connect it via the USB cable and just change few factory settings in your cell phone. Layouts. Then you will build an interactive dice roller app and learn about layouts. The layout defines the structure for a user interface in your app. The layouts in Android are made up of hierarchy of views and view groups. Correct. So everything you see on your mobile screen is nothing but an activity, right? It can be a hierarchy of view and view groups. Here are some types of views that are provided by Android. Text view for displaying the text, image view for displaying the images, and button to perform some action when tapped. Correct. If you want to change the text or if you want to change the image, you can create a functionality and add it to the button. And every time you click on the button, it will do a particular task that you have just assigned it. To position one or more views on the screen, use view group. If we want to put more than one views on the screen, we have to use the view group. Here are some examples of view groups in Android. Use the frame layout when you have to use only one view that you want to use to position on the screen. Use linear view to display the row of views or column of views as shown in the diagram. And then you can also use the constraint layout for more complex layout. You may hear the view group referred to as parent and the view inside them as the children. Okay, so in a simpler words, the layout is nothing but the parent and views are nothing but the children belonging to that parent. And within a view group you can create as many views as you want. It can be you can have them as a single view, multiple view in a row or a column, or else you can have a constraint layout in which you can create more complex and complicated views. Now that declare layouts in the Android using XML. For example, this is what a text view element looks like in an HTML. In XML, the value of Android.text attribute is the text next to it, which is hello world exclamatory mark. The layout width and the layout height attributes are wrap constraints.
Kamlesh, you are not audible.
Am I now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, we will just start from the previous slide. Okay, to position one or more views on the screen, use view groups. Here are some examples of view groups in Android. Use the frame layout when you have to use only one view and if you want to position only on the screen. Use the linear layout to display a row of views or a column of views as shown in the middle diagram. And you can also use the constraint layout for more complex layouts. If you want to create a row plus column plus tabular form, you can use the constraint layout. You may hear the view group referred to as parent and views inside it as a children, because The group is considered as parent and the views within it are considered as children. So don't get confused if I refer to them as parent and children. Declare layouts in Android using XML. The example, this is what a text view element looks like in XML. The value of Android colon text attribute is next to it, which is hello world. The layout width and the layout height attributes are wrap content, meaning the text view will be as wide as and at as tall as the content inside. If you provide the content of 20 pixels long, then it will its layout would be width would be automatically 20 pixels. It depends upon the content that you provide. Defining the UI layout in XML is one aspect of your app. Anatomy of basic app project. You will uh, you will be you will also be exploring other aspects of basic Android app project, which include a main activity, resources for your app, an Android manifest file, and Gradle files. First of all, an activity is how the user interacts with your app, and it takes care of creating a window to your display your UIN. Resources are additional files and static content that your code uses, such as layout files, images, audio files, UI strings, themes, and more. Every project also includes Android manifest.xml file. It describes essential information about your app, such as the app's package name, components of the app, permissions it needs to be accessed. Then proceeding further, Android also uses Gradle to automate and manage the process for your app. If you might remember, in the first session we also introduced to Gradle files. The Gradle files are nothing but an automation to manage the build process of your app. You can configure the build by modifying the Gradle files in your app to specify the project dependencies, the properties of your app, to build the variants, and many more. You can do all of that by just using the Gradle files. This is a co this is a quick overview of the anatomy of a basic Android app project. You will have to learn more and deep dive in to explore these files at first hand in the course. Then logistics. Speaking of the course, let us talk logistics. You will be working through the first three pathways of the Android Kotlin fundamentals course on the developer.android.com. Let us look at how your course will look like, how to access that, and how to navigate around in this online course. Many of you who might have already watched our previous video, you can skip this part. But for those who haven't attended any previous sessions, this is just an introduction on how your session or course looks like. Similar to the last session, go to g.co/android/studyjams and look at the prior programming experience track. You can find both tracks available there, new to programming and prior programming experience track. There is no need for you to log in or sign up or give any ID passwords or anything else. But in order to achieve the badges, you should log in. Android Fundamentals course, click on the Start course. Under the Android Fundamentals course, click on the green button to start the course. In the previous session, we have completed Kotlin cones. This is what the course looks like. There are 2 units and 10 pathways total, represented by one of these badges. Just click on the Explore button in the Unit 1. Under the Unit 1, and in this session, we will be working through the first 3 pathways of Unit 1. Building our first app, building an interactive app, and understanding the layouts. But even after this session, you have to complete all 10 courses and all 10 pathways all by yourself. If you face any difficulties, feel free to always reach out. When you click on into the pathway, this is what it looks like. A pathway is defined as an ordered sequence of learning activities. To learn a specific skill at the end of each pathway, you will also take a quiz and have a chance to earn a badge. The purpose of this quiz is nothing but to check the understanding of what you have just learned. After each activity, you will be earning badges just like this one. There are total 10 pathways in the second track. So you will have to earn all of these 10 badges in order to achieve your milestones. Once you earn a badge, you can save it to your developer profile. Okay, that's it. Let's get started. If you have any questions related to the content, setting up Android Studio, Kotlin programming language, feel free to ask me or any another presenter available in this meeting. I encourage you to work together and find the solutions, especially if you finish already and people within your group are requiring any help. Please feel free to reach out, because as I said earlier, and as I said every time, this is a community and we love to give and take share in community. So right now we will be getting started. If you find any questions, if you have any queries, doubts, feel free to reach out. Okay, so this is nothing but how the landing page looks like. This is an official site by Google on developers.google.com. In the previous session, we have completed new to programming track, and in the recent third session, we have completed the Kotlin cones. Our dear friend Shreyas Patil helped us completing that. Now, for today's session, we will be focusing on prior programming experience track course. As I said earlier, you can see there are total 2 units, and under each unit there are few pathways. In total there are 10 pathways, and in order to achieve your milestones and complete your goals, to understand and completely be able to develop Android apps, you need to complete all these 10 activities. For today's session, as of now, we will be focusing on this one. The first one is Kotlin fundamentals, build your first app. Here in this session, as you can see, I have just confirmed whether if I'm logged in or not. Since it is a beta program, there might be few issues with your sessions. Just make sure you are always logged in. And in the for the first session, we have to install Android Studio. Take a code lab. But now that I have already installed it in the previous session, I can just click on the next, and done. Getting started. Here is introduction, what you will learn, what you will do, what are you supposed to do, and what is an app, how to work in an app. You will get the basic understanding of everything from beginning, from installing until creating the app and displaying the Gradle. As you can just see, here is the project structure, Android. Explore the app folder. Under the app folder, you can find manifest.xml, Java main activity.kt, then layout activity main.xml, Gradle files and everything. These are nothing but the Gradle files. As I said earlier, Gradle files are nothing but they are used to automate the building process. We have two options. We can either run our app on a virtual device, or we can use the physical device. In case if you don't have an Android device or you don't have a USB cable, you can use this Android virtual device AVD, which is nothing but an emulator, to create a virtual mobile on your laptop and execute your apps on that. We can configure how it looks like, its resolution, its density, height, width, and everything. The system image, is it like lollipop, is it nougat, is it Oreo, is it pie? And then once we have ran our code, then we can just run the app on our physical device. Then we also have the homework after this activity, what we should be doing. Okay, now taking our first quiz. Okay, so if any of you know the answer, feel free to unmute and answer the questions. Dash dash is the Android IDE used for developing Android apps. So if nobody is going to answer, I will answer it.
Studio.
Okay, correct. Android is an IDE, official IDE used for developing Android apps. What is the name of auto-generated layout file in the new project you created with Android Studio? So first of all, tell me what.
For main.xml.
Okay, correct. But first of all, every each layout file is named under. Sorry, the extension of each layout file is XML, and for every main activity there is activity underscore main XML. Correct one. Then the Android manifest XML file contains important information that the Android system needs to run your app. Choose two from the following list that should be defined in Android manifest XML. Which two should be defined?
Is in the app and permissions.
Correct. Now, in Android Studio, which tool do you use to create a new virtual device to run in the emulator? Where do you
ABD
create the
manager.
which one?
ABD manager.
Correct one. Then fill in the blank. Dash dash is a build automation system that uses a domain specific language to describe the app's project structure, configuration, and dependencies.
Gradle.
What is it? Correct.
Gradle.
Hmm. I just earned this badge for the first time and I can just view it on my profile. You always need to be signed in on your developer profile as well as google.developers.com so that all your activities will be saved and you can achieve these badges. These are the batches that I have achieved so far. This is bio, my profile links. As of now, as you can see, it is a beta program, but Google is aiming for it to become a developer profile to become a domain first for as a procedure of interview process and getting to know our fellow developers. Okay, so that now that we are done with this, we can just return to the pathway that we have just completed 100%. Now see, I just got earned another badge for learn the first learning pathway and quiz badge. View on your profile. Okay, as you can see the clear difference between the earned one. Since I have already earned this badge, it is highlighted and others are still dark because I haven't unlocked it yet. I haven't completed it yet. And within each pathway, you can find multiple tracks. This is nothing but an activity. These three are activities, and quiz is also an activity within itself. So, understanding the anatomy of the basic Android project. Introduction. Thus far, you have set up everything. Android Studio has created a lot of code for you. Before you modify all that code, it is important for you to understand what you have just created and how to navigate through the source files of an Android Studio. In this code lab, you will learn more about major components of an Android app and add a simple interactivity to app with a single button. So in this pathway, we will be creating a dice roller app. Every time we click on this roll button, we will get another random output. And as you all already know, the dice has only on 6 sides, and output would be within 1 to 6. Now that we have just set up our project, we have to first of all understand what is main activity. In previous versions, the main activity used to be the extension of main activity used to be main activity dot java. Why? Because previously we used to develop the Android apps in Java, but since it is now being developed in Kotlin, the extension of our main activity is main activity dot kt. Kt is nothing but extension to the Kotlin files. And while creating a project, we can easily just check the language. We can create the project within Java or Kotlin as easy as that. As I said earlier, the extension of the file would be main activity.kt. And as you can see, there is package that is com.example.android.diceroller. So every time you set up a project, you need to provide some path, you need to provide a package. And usually what is our site could be like kamlesh.patil.com, but here it would be vice versa, com.patil.kamlesh. It's in the reverse format. And then at the end there is dice roller, which is nothing but the name of the project. Now that we are getting started, we need to import some files. These files are nothing but the bundles and app compatibility. These are the pre-installed features of a Android Studio. Then there are few functions such as onCreate. OnCreate is every time you open this app, this set of code will be executed automatically. And if any of you know the inheritance, if you know inheritance, the super is used to execute the constructor of parent class. So every time you use the super on create, it means it will execute the constructor of this class saved instance state. Now examining the and exploring the app layout file. As I said earlier, the XML file looks like this. It can have the layout width, layout height, then content, text, constraint from left to bottom, bottom to right, right off, top to off. And there is a feature like you can edit all this within a text, that is coding format, or else you can use the design view. In design view, you can just easily drag and drop and change it with the cursor. But the text view gives you a lot of functionalities. Then if you want to just add a button to your app, all you have to do is you just have to write this much of code. You can provide features like height, width, and what text should be displayed upon the button. And if in case if you are going to use the role label, app name constantly and frequently in your app, you can just define them in the resources under string.xml. Once you define any string in the resources under string.xml, you can use them as many times as you want throughout the project. All you have to do is just use this string name. String name is more like variable, and this is the value stored within that variable. Now, now that you have just created a first app, you have inserted a text view and a button. But many of you might have noticed that whenever you create a project, all the elements and all the text views available, all the views available in your layout will be automatically shifted to the top left corner. Why is it? Because we haven't yet mentioned the location. We haven't mentioned the position where we want to allocate, which is why we have to use the layout. As you saw earlier, we are as you can see, we are using the linear layout. In the linear layout, the orientation is vertical. Vertical means what? All the elements within that layout will be designed in vertical, that is column format. If we would have used horizontal here, all the contents would be in linear format. Then you can provide the string label. You can as you saw earlier, we just created a label and then we provided @string and then string name instead of providing the actual string, right? Then we are giving the layout gravity to the center of the horizontal, center of the vertical. Since we provided the central gravity, the text view, the button, everything has been moved to the center of an app. Now that everything is on the center, we can run the app either on a virtual device or on your physical device. Now you want to add a basic functionality. The basic functionality could be, after you click a button, the text should be changed to, previously what it was, hello world. Now it should be changed to dice rolled. So we can just provide the result.text under the text is equal to dice rolled. So this is nothing but a text view. We are creating this text view at the runtime, and then find view by id r.id. R stands for resources. ID is nothing but we whatever we provide the ID in XML, and then result.text. Result.text is nothing but result.text is a text property to change the display text. You can ignore the hint to extract the string into resources. This is just a temporary string. Now we also have to display a random number instead of this dice roll text, correct? For that we can provide the range. As you can see, there are double dots. So these double dots are nothing but it provides a range, and this is lower bound. The 1 is nothing but lower bound, and 6 is nothing but upper bound. So whatever the output might be, it will be between 1 to 6. Why is it? Because the dice has only on 6 sides, and the output of rolling a dice could be between 1 to 6. And we are using the random function in order to generate a random output. Now every time you click on the roll button, it will give you a random output. Now there is also a coding challenge for you. You can take this dice roller challenge. Summarizing, just understanding and summarizing what we have understood so far. Then there is learn more. If you want to still study further, understanding the views and the layouts, you can use these links and visit the web pages. Then there is homework. Question 1: how we use which method on activity inflates the app's layout to make it views available as objects? So we can answer these questions we can browse the internet to find the answers to these questions, so that while browsing we will also understand the few other basic functionalities that might curious us. Okay.
Hello, I have one doubt.
Yes.
As an Android developer, what should I prefer for initializing, for drawing layouts? Should I prefer designing or text?
If you are an UI interface designer, you will use the design view, but with the help of text, you get much more functionalities. You can add another features that are not even in the drag and drop layout.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. Now that we have just completed the first activity, we can understand the image resources and compatibility. This is just an introduction of what we will be studying in the 01.3. 01.3 means what? 01 in the first unit and 1.3 is nothing but the third activity. App overview. Earlier you saw we used a text view for here to display dice rolled, hello world, or any random number between 1, 2, 3. But now we want to use a image. For that we will in this pathway we will be going through how to use the particular image to display output. Add the images. First of all, you can't just directly mention the images. You have to first of all add the images to the drawable folder. Every time you create a image, you get something like this. You can just preview the image how it looks like. You can change its resolutions, sizes, and XML. Correct. Now that we have done with the preview, now that we have clicked on the preview, you get to see how the image it will actually look like when displayed on the cell phone. Update the layout to use the images. See, up until what we have did is just like we inserted these images onto our app. But now while proceeding further, we also have to insert those images into our activity. And for that, we will be using a image view. Earlier we were using the text view, but now we will delete the text view and add an image view. Image view is almost similar. For layout, you can use the wrap content, sorry, for the layout height, width, gravity. You can use this similar features that we want it in the center of the horizontal line. We want the content to wrap the content, which means the height and width would be same as the image as it is. And source of the image, the source of the image should be drawable, commas dice underscore one, which means here we have inserted this 6 dices, correct? For each output there is an individual image, and if the answer is 1, then it will automatically open the dice underscore one dot xml, correct? Then once we have created, we can just we can just click on the preview button to preview the layout, and it should look something like this. But similarly, we also have to update the code. Earlier we were using the text view, but now we have to change it to image view, correct? For that we will use val variable when drawable resource is equal to when random integer could be 1 2 3 4 5 6, correct? And under that it is just like switch case. If the random integer is 1, then display this image. If random integer is 3, then display this image. If random is nothing but else, then display this image, because the random integer would be always within 1 to 6. Why? Because we have mentioned it over here, the range as 1 to 6, and this is nothing but a switch case. I am hoping that you are aware of what is switch case. If not, switch case is just if or else, if else constantly. If it is 1, then display this image. If not, then if it is 2, then display this image up until 6. If it's not 5, then display the sixth image. And now that we have dice image, set dice image resources and drawable resource. So whatever the variable is, we are just assigning it to the set image resource. The set image resource is nothing but a function that sets a new resource to the image. Value variable dice image view find view by id r.id.dice image. As I said earlier, R stands for resources, ID stands for ID of the image that we just assigned earlier, and then the dice underscore image is the variable where the image would be displayed. We but before we get started, we can just set it to the null so that unless and until unless and until someone clicks on that, it will be a null. Task use a default image. We can also use the empty. This is empty, which means there is nothing on the screen unless and until it has been clicked. We can have the empty dice image as well. Now that we have just understood the activities, views, and layouts, let us take the deep understanding of what is API levels, and compatibilities. Some of you might know, and for those who don't know, API is nothing but application programming interface. So it helps you conduct many activities. In the previous code lab, when you created your project, you indicated that a specific Android API level that your app should use. API levels are, for example, API level 19 resembles to the Android KitKat 4.4. Android API level 28 resembles to the latest one. Sorry, latest one is like 30, 31, something like that. Each API level resembles to the Android version. You all know your Android devices run upon the Android level, that is Android version, that is 4.4, 5.0, 7.0, 8.0, 9.0, correct? The latest one is Pi, and after that there was something Q, right? Android Q. All of them have unique API level. For our app to be compatible with the latest app, we have to use the API level. The minimum SDK version is 19. So anything below Android KitKat will not be able to run this app up until the Android SDK version 28, which means up until 28 on every device it will be able to run. Then exploring the compatibility. Here in the dependencies, dependencies means the required file that our app needs in order to execute. First of all, we are just implementing the list of elements, list of APIs, list of files, the jar files that we will be needing, libraries we will be needing in order to execute our app. We have to mention all of the required slash necessary files as dependencies. But since it is a hello world app or a basic Android app, you don't need to specify any of them. All of them are already specified. But in case if you are adding a functionality, such as like you are adding Firebase or Google Vision API to your app, you need to change the dependencies. You need to implement Google.firebase dot Google Vision API slash something like that. And then there is versions as well. Add compatibility for vector drawables. So many of you might be aware that there are image files such as SVG, right? Sharp vector graphics. Then there are PNGs, JPEGs, or everything. So your app needs to be compatible with them. By default, it is. But if you want to change the compatibility, you can always make changes into the build.gradle module.app. In this file, you can change the compatibilities and understand which level of compatibility your app has to the Android level. Then if you want the whole solution code, you can find it on the GitHub of google dash developer dash training.com. At github.com you can find the whole source code. You can just copy it or clone it or fork it, and if you don't have time or if you run into some problems, you can always find the solution code here on this link. All coding challenges are optional. Not necessarily you have to actually do it, but if you still haven't understood what exactly you are supposed to do, you can just go and take the final challenge where you will have to make changes, where you will have to fill in the values and variables. Now summarizing what we have just learned up until now, we have understood app resources, vector drawables, then API levels, Jetpack, app namespaces, and everything. And if you want to still study further, you can just visit any of these links. These web pages have the official documentation. And in my personal opinion, if you ask me, if you have any doubts, always visit the official documentation. Why? Because it is always up to date, accurate, and created by the original developers, the creators of the software. If you just Google it, Stack Overflow or any another websites, they just have older versions of the answers, right? Then there is homework as well. I would like you to find the answers to these questions. These are few difficult questions as compared to your quizzes. So this is how you just complete all the activities. Uh, as of now, we are on a time crunch, so that because of which we will be going back to our session, and I would highly recommend you guys to do it on your personal level. There is no such thing as getting stuck at something. There are always resources available. If not, if you still feel stuck, you can always feel free to reach out to me or any another presenters available in this meeting. Else I hope you have contact information of me. You can find me in the admin, as admin of our WhatsApp group. Since if any of you have already developed this app, you can always play with this app. Now we are proceeding further to the second segment of our session, that is FAQs. If you have attended our previous session, you would know what are the FAQs. But for those who couldn't understand or who couldn't attend our previous session, I'm going to repeat some of the FAQs. The first one is how to install Android Studio. I am unable to set up the Android Studio. Do I need to do anything else? You can learn from the code lab. As we saw earlier on the code lab in the first session, there is a whole tutorial on how to install and download whole application of Android Studio. My progress bar is not updating even after I complete the code lab. What should I do? Okay, so as we saw earlier, when I completed this for the first time, it was showing still at the 0. So what I did, I went into here, I checked my settings, and then I got back and I refreshed the page. Then it automatically reached the 50%. Why? Because there are some issues with it. Since it is a beta program, there still might be some issues with the progress bar or your activities. So I would highly recommend you just refresh the page or try to logging in again. Is there any time limit for each pathway or unit or activity? No, there are no time constraints for you to perform any activity. You can perform as many times as you want for as long as you want. The only constraint for you to is complete the second track before 15 January 2021, which is very ample time for anyone to complete both tracks. How can I earn certificate for Android app development in Kotlin? The only constraint for you is to complete the second track before 15 January 2021, which is very ample time for anyone to complete both tracks. Now, note the certificate is only for the completion of second track. If you complete only the first track, you will get the basic understanding, but you will not be able to eligible you will not be eligible for getting or earning a certificate. How can I get my app published? Featured by Google Developers India. You will have to develop and submit any simple yet creative application that you have created during this Android study jams before 15 January 2021. Out of all submitted apps, throughout all participants, one or many amazing apps will be provided further to Google Developers India to showcase in their social media and blogs or weekly newsletters. What is Android PWA? One of the members of our community asked me this in the previous session. What is PWA? PWA is nothing but a progressive web app. A progressive web app that lets you have the immersive experience of an Android device, Android mobile app. But the key difference is you do not have to install any app. All you have to do is just visit the website and you can feel the app executing. The PWA has all the basic functionalities such as your Android app. On PWA, the PWA can be executed everywhere and anywhere on mobile, which is Android or iPhone or a tablet or laptops or MacBook everywhere. Now, looking into the errors, quiz not getting completed. I faced a similar issue with the code labs. The best way I found it was to restart the browser and go through the quiz or lab again. It will be counted. Error: didn't receive a badge after completing the activities. Just a moment ago, as you saw me, whenever I completed a single activity, I received a badge. Whenever I completed a quiz, I received a badge, and when I completed the whole pathway, I received another badge stating that I can complete. I just completed the whole pathway. So I would recommend you refresh the page and give the quiz again. Has happened with me quite a few times. It's cause your account session gets timed out. Other ways you can resolve these issues with Code Labs. Try clearing your android.com cookies, restart your browser, make sure you're logged in, click on done after you finish the Code Lab. If it still doesn't work, refresh the web page. What is the criteria for developing the app to be featured on Google Developers India? Officially, there is no criteria. There are no guidelines on how your app should be of or what level of complexity it needs to be. But in my personal opinion, if I was the one judging the apps, I would have these criterias. Simple, your app should be simple, it should be creative, it should be colorful, it should be user friendly. User friendly means even those people who can't speak English or who can't understand the technical stuff in your in your mobile, it should be user friendly as in any non-technical user can use the app. Then easy to understand and operate. It should be there should be minimum text and more graphics so that anyone can understand the graphics more easily and faster. Unique functionalities. To use to showcase the use case of your app, you need to have some sort of a unique functionality, right? And a thoughtful idea, which means like this app would be beneficial or helpful to someone or a particular group of people. So I feel, in my humble opinion, these are the criteria. But once again, there are no proper guidelines or criteria from Google. Any app can be developed. All you have to do is just like you have to create a simple and creative app. It doesn't need to be complex or it doesn't need to be complicated, right? Then in previous session, Shreyas Patil answered this question, which was why prefer Kotlin over any another languages. Many of you already know there are multiple languages you can use to develop Android apps. You can use Java first of all, then you can use Flutter. The language is Dart for Flutter. Then you can also create the Android apps, native Android apps in JavaScript as well by using React Native. Then there are many frameworks such as Ionic, Zan, many others. But why should you choose Kotlin over any other languages? Why? It is easy to pick up, so you can create a powerful apps immediately. Clean and compact syntax. As we saw in the previous code, the code is completely clean and compact, which is why it is much easier to read than Java. It supports functionals and op styling. It is safe. Interoperability means if you have already created a Java program, a Java class, you can always access that class from Kotlin. And if you have a Kotlin class, you can always access the Kotlin classes from Java files as well. And multi-platform support, the multi-platform support is still in the beta program. The multi-platform support is just like cross-platform, but the key difference is cross-platform has a single code base and it can run on any device. And similarly, it is the multi-platform is also similar. Okay. Now that we have just completed it, I would highly recommend you guys to share what we have just learned with the hashtags of Android Study Jams, hashtag DSC-DYPCOE. Hope you all enjoyed the game and learning to create your first Android app. On social media, you can post the photos, highlights, or app screenshots from today's using the hashtag Android Study Jams or hashtag DSC-DYPCOE. If you want to continue learning, here are some resources. Don't worry, I will share these resources on the app as well on the chat box. But before we get started, does any of you have any questions that you would want to ask, doubts or queries?
When we get these slides,
You want access to the slides, correct?
or what?
The slides. Okay, so link to the slides will be mentioned into the chat description of our video. Do you know our YouTube channel DSC-DYPCOE?
So
On YouTube.
quiz of second track, second activity.
Sorry, what?
Can you help out with that quiz of second activity? Building
Yeah,
an
sure.
interactive app.
Just a moment. Okay. Which method on activity inflates the app's layout and makes the views in the view hierarchy available for you? It is on create. Every time your app is created, it will automatically execute the on create function, and within the on create function, it will inflate the app's layout. Which view attribute do you use to set the width of view so that it adjusts to the fit of content of the inside? So we use the
With
wrap content.
app.
Wrap content. And are you aware what means match parent?
Extended to the size of that whole activity, parent
Correct.
size.
Correct. Then which image view attribute indicates the source image that will only be displayed as a preview in the Android Studio?
Tools SRC.
Correct. Then there is what does the late init keyword in the variable functions declaration indicate in the Kotlin code?
It will be initialized later.
Sorry, what?
The variable will be initialized later.
Correct.
Fourth one.
Then which API level indicates the highest Android version that your app has been tested out?
Targeted SDK version.
Correct. You see an import statement in your code that starts with the Android X. What does this mean?
The class is a part of an Jetpack library. First one.
Correct. See, we have just earned the second badge, that is Kotlin Fundamentals Build an Interactive App badge. And we can always view or visit this badge. We can just favorite it on our on our developer profile. And are there any other doubts or queries?
Thanks for giving such a kind knowledge, Kamlesh.
I'm just glad that I could be of any help. And feel free to always reach out.
Kamlesh, just for kind your knowledge, I'm Dinesh Rajpurohit, Android Facilitator of DSC-DYPCOE.
That's really amazing to know. And I'm glad you attended my session.
Yeah, I thought just getting knowledge from other facilitators would be help me out while taking my own sessions.
and I hope this has been a helpful session for you and informative as well.
Sure. That's a great session, man.
Thanks a lot. That means a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no any other another questions or doubts, we can proceed further and conclude this session.
Yes, we can conclude now.
Okay, well then, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for joining the session. See you in the next session.